to my music closet. My name is Muggsy. I am a big musical theater nerd. You probably are too, otherwise you wouldn't have clicked on this video. I am a voice teacher, actor, singer. I do sciencey stuff during the daytime. And this is the very first episode of Adaptation the Musical. JK, that's a lie. I filmed an entire episode about Legally Blonde but forgot to turn on my mic, so this is technically the second episode. Shh. So this episode is going to be about Moulin Rouge. You can't really see it, but it's up there. I think my program's somewhere around here. So I got to see Moulin Rouge the musical, as opposed to Moulin Rouge the 2001 film that I was obsessed with when I was 13, in about November of 2019. I paid way too much for my ticket, but it was very much worth it. Yes, you can't get it at the TKTS booth. Sorry. This was one of those shows where I was completely wrapped right from the get-go. My train had run late, and so I was late, and I'm running up the stairs into the mezzanine where my seat is in like row Q. I think that was legitimately actually my row number was Q. But I'm running up the stairs and I hear the beginning strains of Lady Marmalade, and I'm just like, and then I see the set, and oh my gosh, you guys, this set is beautiful. It's also very expensive, but hence why it's so beautiful. Though you can always do theater with a little. I mean, money isn't everything, but it does pay for a lot of electric lights. So I was wrapped entirely from the beginning, except for when this one drunk woman behind me started trying to sing along with the musical. Just 'cause a musical uses pop music that you know does not mean you sing along. Nobody paid that much money to hear your drunken self wheedling along to the songs in the show. I don't care if you think you have a Broadway quality voice, save it for your shower. Anyway, so I also saw a matinee, so I saw actually a lot of the understudies who were all absolutely fabulous. On to some background for the uninitiated. Moulin Rouge the musical is based off of Moulin Rouge, the 2001 film directed by Baz Luhrmann, starring Nicole Kidman, Ewan McGregor, Jim Broadbent, Richard Roxburgh, John Leguizamo, a whole bunch of people, right? Those are just the biggest names I could think of right off the top of my head that are in the film. I was obsessed with this movie when I was 13, like I said. Absolute baby theater nerd, trash, loving it. If you're familiar with Baz Luhrmann's work, besides Moulin Rouge, like Great Gatsby or Romeo plus Juliet, you are already familiar with the way he uses music to evoke the types of emotions he wants from the audience. And it's actually, I think, a very clever use of anachronism within a structure of a historical drama, which his movies tend to be. I mean, Great Gatsby is set in the 20s, Moulin Rouge is turn of the century, and then I actually don't know when Romeo plus Juliet's supposed to be, because they have like guns and they're all dressed very 90s, but at the same time, Shakespeare. Our story begins in Paris in 1898, 99, 1900, somewhere in there-ish, with a framing device. And I'm going to be mostly summarizing the movie for this, because guess what? It's almost the same thing. So this writer named Christian, played by Ewan McGregor in the movie and Aaron Tveit in the show, is sitting there telling the story of his beautiful love affair with this high-class courtesan from the Moulin Rouge, Satine, Nicole Kidman / Karen Olivo. And it is really kind of interesting the way they do it. Not gonna get into that right now. So we have the framing device and then we jump into the story proper. And Christian is a young, idealistic, bohemian romantic who has come to Montmartre, which is the poor part of Paris, at least in the 1890s / early Edwardian era. If you're familiar with La Boheme, that is where it's set. Which brings me to my next point on this. Moulin Rouge is actually very heavily inspired by operas such as La Traviata and La Boheme. I haven't seen Traviata, but I have seen Bohème a couple of times, and I sang Musetta's aria, you know. That one. Everyone knows that one. Christian is in Montmartre in Paris, and he runs into these bohemian artists, and he very much falls in with them. Among them, the two most important are the narcoleptic Argentinian, who is later renamed to Santiago in the stage version, which, yay, Hispanic representation, he gets a name. We love fellow Latinos. Anyway, and one very famous artist, well, famous to us now, back then he was, you know, struggling a lot, by the name of Henri-Marie Raymond de Toulouse-Lautrec Montfort. They just call him Toulouse, because nobody wants to say all of those names. Yeah, and also he is most famously known as Toulouse-Lautrec, as you do. That's John Leguizamo in the movie, for those of you keeping score. Together, they have a wonderful musical number and devise a show that they are going to pitch to Zidler, who runs the Moulin Rouge. That's Jim Broadbent in the movie, and Danny Burstein in the show. Fun fact, Jim Broadbent did not do his own singing in the movie. He was dubbed by a very talented opera singer whose name I do not remember right now. I will put it up on the screen when I look it up in editing. Hijinks and diegetic and non-diegetic musical numbers ensue. Diegesis is like the world of the film / story. So Satine's musical number is a thing, but the old stuffy rich white guys singing Nirvana and Fatboy Slim, not so much literally happening, but more so to denote the decadence and party atmosphere that the Moulin Rouge is supposed to have. And if you're familiar with musicals, which you probably are, based on this whole spiel of my show being about musicals, Cabaret, if you've seen the movie version, that makes use of exclusively diegetic music. And so the only time we see characters singing is when they're literally performing on stage or performing like a part of their life. Lindsay Ellis talks about this much better than I do. I've actually kind of absorbed her analysis of that in her wonderful essay about musical theater, which I shall link here. It's really more about musical movies, but you know, same diff. At least for me. Hijinks ensue, and there is this wacky sort of Christine mistakes Christian for this duke whom she is supposed to seduce, who is going to secure funding for the Moulin Rouge to continue being open. And so Christian meets Satine in her elephant. Yeah, I know, elephant. It's her boudoir, but you know. So Christian and Satine have their thing. She thinks she's successfully seduced this wealthy man. Then he lets the cat out of the bag that he is not a duke. He's a writer. So the real duke shows up, played by Richard Roxburgh in the movie and Tam Mutu in the stage version. And we think that Satine and Christian are going to get away with their wacky hijinks sneaking him out of her boudoir, and then they don't get away with it due to shenanigans. So Christian and Satine end up in a classic, not what it looks like, we were just rehearsing scenario, in which they use the obvious, even though it is not what it looks like, they use the we were just rehearsing for a show. And so Christian and his bohemian buddies get to actually pitch their show to Zidler and the Duke. Fun fact, the Duke in early versions of the script was actually dubbed Count Von Groovy because he didn't have a name. But here he's the Duke of Monmouth, so he sounds a bit more serious. I kind of prefer Count Von Groovy though. So we get some Orpheus in the Underworld. If you do not know that overture, you know it. That one. The Duke actually funds the thing. Everyone's super excited. They have funding. They are going to put on a show. Satine's going to get to be a real actress. Zidler's going to get to, you know, not be poor So the condition is the Duke gets 10% of the profits and exclusive access to Satine. Uh-oh. Trouble for our budding romance. Oh, yes, and sometime after this, Satine and Christian fall in love with a musical number. Musical theater, everyone. We end with the Elephant Love Medley, which is like the coolest mashup of songs ever. I'm not gonna lie, it's really, really well done. Act 2, rehearsals are underway. Christian's writing it. Satine is starring. Zidler gets to play the bad guy because that's what he likes to play. It's fun. And he is a hammy character. So it's really, really entertaining. Watch the movie if you haven't, honestly. It's really fun. And everything is kind of going fine, right? So Christian and Satine continue their affair. They write a beautiful song for each other that is Come What May. It was very shamefully disqualified from the Best Original Song Oscar, which makes me sad. I mean, I was like 6 when that happened, so I didn't care then, but obviously now as a grown-up person, I care. Yes, and Satine keeps finding ways to avoid sleeping with the Duke until opening night. This also includes the Like a Virgin segment, which is peak 2001 comedy. However, all is not bliss in the Moulin Rouge. Yes, I did steal that joke from The Great. Yes, you should watch it. It's on Hulu. It's very funny. Satine is kept in the dark about her own illness. Surprise! She has tuberculosis, aka Victorian novel disease, which is honestly really gross from a biological standpoint. It involves a lot of scarring in the lungs and coughing up of blood. And before antibiotics, we had no way to treat it, so you likely would die. And it was called consumption because you wasted away, quite literally. Specifically, it is pulmonary tuberculosis. So, long story short, Satine breaks Christian's heart to save him. Nini, one of the other dancers who is jealous of Satine, lets the cat out of the bag to the Duke, saying how she doesn't understand why the courtesan would go for the penniless writer. Oops, she means sitar player. So the Duke goes full on King Joffrey and decides that he wants Satine to sleep with him that night, and he assaults her while we get Ewan McGregor screaming, singing, along with the narcoleptic Argentinian, to the best arrangement in the entire movie. Opening night! So, the show opens, it's set in India, and it's low-key, culturally appropriative, but this was also, like I said, 2001, so people didn't really think about stuff like that back then. So the show goes on, and Santiago, the narcoleptic Argentinian, has a narcoleptic attack and falls asleep in one of the set pieces. Convenient. Christian, presumably drunk and thoroughly upset, shows up and throws money at Satine, saying he has come to pay his whore. And of course the audience all thinks this is part of the show, and the Duke is furious, as he is wont to be, because in the movie, at least, he is like a petulant child, but violent and grown. So Zidler's actually the one who covers for Christian and Satine with the audience, saying, "Of course you are the penniless sitar player. Just because you have shaved your beard does not mean I don't recognize you." Which, honestly, pro cover. So Christian's about to storm out of the theater, and then Satine sings their special song reminding him how much she loves him, and then they all decide, screw it, we're not doing the Duke's ending, we're doing our ending, where the poor people end up happy and together. And everyone sings an awesome song about it. Then Satine dies. So let's start off with some general changes between the movie and the stage show that I really liked. First off, we've got no more cultural appropriation. Yay! The show within a show, Spectacular Spectacular in the film, Bohemian Rhapsody in the stage version, is now set in Paris. So the choreography in the show is just a masterpiece. Full on. It is insane to watch, and I love it, and it makes me wish I was a better dancer. They don't use a lot of the original choreography from the film, which makes sense. Colorblind casting! Yay! So the show has a much more diverse cast than the movie. I think in the movie there were like 2 people of color. But yeah, the cast is much more reflective of the theater-going audience and of, you know, the world in general, which is awesome. Guys, the tech in this show, it's so pretty. The costumes, the swing, everything. And by the swing, I mean Satine literally descends from a swing over the audience in her entrance. Jay Magis's voice is fantastic, and the whole performance as Baby Doll. So let's break this down. A lot of the music that is in the show is from the movie. However, it's been reorchestrated. There have been a lot of songs added into the mixes, which honestly is nice. And there are also a couple of songs that get shuffled about. Let's go through it song by song. So in the movie, we begin with a very sad David Bowie singing Nature Boy. But here in the stage show, we have this awesome, pumped up Lady Marmalade, get the audience right away number. And that is sung by the Ladies M, the other dancers at the Moulin Rouge, and Zidler. So it still serves the same function as an opening number, it's just much more high energy, which is more appropriate to the stage. So next is Truth, Beauty, Freedom, Love, which is a mashup of Royals and Children of the Revolution and We Are Young, and it serves the same function as that Sound of Music bit in the movie where Christian meets the Bohemians and they like take him in and they're like, yay, we have a writer now. It also very much establishes the feel of the world that we're living in with this movie / musical, in that we know, okay, we're going to be using modern music, but it's not actually modern music that the characters would be singing, but it's a tool for storytelling, kind of like every song in a musical. It also establishes Christian as the fourth wall breaking narrator, which is great. That's what we need. So here's where one song does get moved. Instead of having the green fairy scene happen here when the Bohemians are all bonding, we instead get it later in Act 2. So we'll talk about it then. So next up is the Sparkling Diamond, which is a song I'm going to count as being from the movie, because it does have the original 2 songs that are in there. It also inspired my makeup. But the mashup, in addition to having Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend and Material Girl, also has Single Ladies, Diamonds Are Forever, and Diamonds, you know, the Rihanna song, Shine Bright Like a Diamond. So this is the thing I was talking about with the swing. Satine descends on a trapeze swing over the orchestra of the audience, and I'm like, and it's a cloud of glittery confetti and beauty, and just, I want to do that maybe eventually sometime in my life. So next is Shut Up and Raise Your Glass, which is of course a mashup of Raise Your Glass and Shut Up and Dance With Me, with a surprise visit in the end from I Want to Dance With Somebody. So this is like that Rhythm of the Night scene in the movie where Christian and the Duke, obviously the mix-up happens, they're both there, Satine thinks that Christian's the Duke, they dance together, they have an awesome time, beautiful, like fully, the choreography is just great, y'all. Did I just say y'all? Oh God, I've lived in the South for too long. So next is Firework, yes, the Katy Perry song, and it takes the place of One Day I'll Fly Away from the movie, which I am very sad. That's the one song where I was truly very sad to not hear it in the show. But it serves the same character purpose of showing Satine feeling beaten and broken and like she will never amount to anything, something we've all probably experienced in our lives, and her kind of bucking herself up that she will get through this. And it's been moved to earlier in the plot, partly to establish Satine as a character to us a little bit more, and partly because it just works better with the scene changes. Okay, so next is Your Song. This scene's basically the same as in the movie. It's great. It sounds beautiful. I like it. The pitch song. Here's where Orpheus and the Underworld comes in. So the main changes are that we get more We get more of what the story is going to be. We get more input from each of the characters on what they think the story should be. It's just really, really fun. Also, Tam Mutu as the Duke is very intimidating, which is totally different from the movie, but I should talk about that later. Speaking of the Duke, the next song up is Sympathy for the Duke, which is a mashup of Sympathy for the Devil, You Can't Always Get What You Want, and Gimme Shelter. Now, we actually get to know the Duke a little bit better in the stage version from the movie, and he is much less Joffrey and much more genuinely scary, honestly. Like, I was legit intimidated by this character, and it's fantastic. Also, they get rid of that awful, stupid Satine not sleeping with the Duke till opening night plotline. I like it. I think it's a good choice for conservation of detail in the story. I think it makes sense because she's a courtesan. She's gonna do what she does. And Christian, of course, says, yeah, I'm fine with it. Friends, do not get into an open relationship if you do not want an open relationship. Also, it's not quite an open relationship because Satine's getting paid, but close enough. So now we have where Nature Boy has been moved to, and this becomes a duet between Toulouse and Christian, and we learn about Toulouse's history. So Toulouse and Christine. Phantom on the brain. So Toulouse and Satine actually grew up together and knew each other, so he gives us her whole backstory, and it's really this beautiful bonding scene between the two of them that also fleshes out the world of the show and the characters. Very nice choice. Much better than using it as a frame device. Now we are at the Act 1 closing number, Elephant Love Medley. So this is the Elephant Love Medley from the movie and cranked up to 11. They add all the songs. They bring in all of the tech that they can. There's a quick change on stage. Aaron Tveit is like flying, but you know, ensemble members are holding him up. It's really cool. And I think it's a good visualization of the dream-like quality that the sequence had in the movie being translated to stage. In general, this is a very good sort of way to adapt a show from a movie. Act 2, Backstage Romance. So this is a huge mashup, and the dancing and the lights here work really well together. And we get to see the rehearsal with Santiago choreographing, because choreographing. Making the dance thing. So this actually replaces Like a Virgin. I know, weird, right? But also still a good choice. It still establishes what's been going on in the past couple months. It's really not so funny, but it's just impressive to watch, you guys. And I think it also keeps the tone a little bit more serious because Like a Virgin, for all that it is, you know, funny and cute and very 2001 haha guy in drag joke, kind of. Jim Broadbent puts a cloth over his head and he's a nun. It also no longer fits with the Duke. Tam Mutu's Duke is much more serious than Richard Roxburgh's. Not to say that he doesn't have his funny moments, but he legitimately seems like somebody who could kill you if he wanted to. And you might say thank you. So now we get Come What May. Again, kind of the same as in the movie. It's still Christian and Satine declaring their love for each other and using the song to remind each other. It's really beautiful. I have one nitpick though. So I understand the necessity of changing the ending cadence to be bigger because everything on stage has to be bigger than in film. But I take umbrage with choosing to change what lyrics it ends on. What I want from the song is the original lyrics. It's supposed to end on, I will love you till my dying day. Because foreshadowing, because remember, Satine has tuberculosis, and this is foreshadowed from her very first entrance. That she got that cough of death, and she ain't making it through Act 2. So now we spend more time with the Duke in Only Girl in a Material World. And this is like what I said, the Duke being funny. And he's funny in that sort of straight man funny, in that you get posh sounding Tam Mutu singing Want You to Love Me Like I'm a Hot Ride. and I think it's fantastic. So now we have Chandelier, which is the Green Fairy scene. And we have Zidler and the other dancers from the Moulin Rouge coming to distract Christian so that he will stop interfering with things because the Duke's getting suspicious. Also, I forgot to mention in the last song, the Duke has like proposed to make Satine his full-time high-class mistress. And another shout out to J Magis's voice, because oh my gosh. Ugh, I ascended when I heard it in the show, when I was sitting there 50 million rows back. Right, so now we have El Tango de Roxanne. I don't like this one as much as I like the movie version. I adore Aaron Tveit as a performer. Like, if you know me in person, you know. But I think the song loses its impact from cutting Christian's counterpoint with the "Why does my heart cry? Feelings I can't fight." Also, I like the story parallel of Santiago trying to counsel his friend. Also, I really want more of Ricky Rojas' voice, because he does that cool scratchy thing that the original Argentinian in the movie, Jacek Komen, does. Fun fact, he's actually Polish. So now we go on to Crazy Rollin', which is Crazy and Rollin' in the Deep. Aaron Tveit wailing out Adele. I love it. It's great. This kind of serves the same purpose as Hindi Sad Diamonds, except without the cultural appropriation. So essentially we see what's going on during that same time frame of the show happening, but with Christian's perspective. We also see him buying a gun. I'm still conflicted about that plot point. We'll talk about it later. So Christian shows up. He is very upset, as he was in the film, and he threatens to kill himself. And Satine talks him down using their special song. So I don't know how I feel about this, mainly because one's romantic partner threatening suicide because the other is going to leave them or has left them is a particularly abusive and toxic trait that should not be a thing. At the same time, it is used more so for melodrama within the show, and not every piece of media has to be perfectly unproblematic. And it is shown that this is a bad thing that Christian is doing. And I mean, Satine obviously does still love him and doesn't want him to kill himself, so it makes sense that she would stop him, but even if she didn't, Satine is shown in the show as the type of person who would try to stop him from killing himself anyway. But given what we now understand about intimate partner violence, especially since this movie that the show is based off of is now 20 years old, I really think this wasn't the best change they could have made when adapting the show. So here comes the Come What May reprise. Now this is still a bittersweet ending like we had in the movie, but instead of the Moulin Rouge going bankrupt and shutting down, the show is a success. Hooray! Partly because they actually had understudies in the form of Santiago and Nini. By the way, Nini's no longer a backstabber in this. I will tell you about that later. Yeah, so the story's a success. Christian takes solace in the fact that his and Christine... Why do I keep doing this? So Christian takes solace in the fact that his and Satine's love story will continue to be told. And that's the end. And then we get a fun sing-along, bows, more, now's your turn to actually sing along with the actors. Karen. I just chose Karen because we all know the Karen joke thing. All the Karens I know are really nice and I like them a lot. I know like 2. So now let's talk about the changes made to the characters themselves. First off, we have Christian. Aaron Tveit / Ewan McGregor. So Christian's now from Ohio. They didn't even bother with the whole accent thing, which is fine. It's a good joke in the show. I like it. He's also now a songwriter rather than just a writer. I don't know if that makes him more bohemian. It certainly is more convenient for the plot. So he is now cast as the lead in the show within a show. Bohemian Rhapsody, Spectacular, whichever you want to call it. We know what you're meaning. with Santiago as his understudy. If you remember in the movie, Santiago insisted on playing the lead. Now we have Satine. So Satine is fleshed out a little bit more. She's given more depth, more backstory. We see her lack of self-worth grow into her taking charge of her life, quite literally. She is the one who gets the diagnosis of tuberculosis herself, and she then decides she's going to go on with the show. And I mean, she does make that decision in the movie, but I like that it isn't Zidler being this patriarchal, I'm going to hide your sickness from you for your own good thing. Zidler, Jim Broadbent / Danny Burstein. I saw Kevin Morrow though. Kevin Morrow was great. I like him. He was also in Bandstand. So Zidler's expressly queer now. Yay! And he's also more of an age with Satine. I think he's still a little bit older than she, but I don't think there's this weird sort of, is that her dad vibe that we had going on in the movie. So Toulouse, John Leguizamo / Sar Ngauja. I saw Olatayu Bosede as Toulouse in the stage version. He was good. He was younger, which I think fits because Ashley Lauren, I believe, is younger than Karen Olivo. I don't know. I'm really far away from everybody. I don't know how old everybody is. They all look so young on stage and beautiful, and I want to be up there where the people are. So he and Satine have their history thing now that I talked about in his musical number. So they can't really use the, green screen effect for the Toulouse-Lautrec syndrome that Toulouse had and is named for him. So he instead walks more with a limp, which I think may have been the way it started off anyway, but that does make it a bit more easily cast. I don't know that any of the actors actually have the disability that the character has in the show. That's something I probably should look into. Oh well. Right. The narcoleptic Argentinian / Santiago. Jacek Koman and Ricky Rojas is him in the stage version. I mentioned earlier, he does the gravelly voice thing so well. I don't know how he does it without hurting his throat because I can't do it, but I love it. Oh, he gets a name! Yay! Because I believe in the movie he is literally just called either the narcoleptic Argentinian or the unconscious Argentinian. He is also established as a tango dancer, which makes his role as choreographer for the show within a show make sense. Alright, now we come to the character that has, I think, the biggest change. Not to his role within the story, but just to his vibe in general. The Duke. André de Corbeniceau, le Duc de Montroth. So this is Richard Roxburgh in the film, Tam Mutu on stage. Oh boy, I have a lot to say about this character. So the summer before I saw this, I went on this bender where I was listening to Dr. Zhivago on repeat. So I came in here being used to hearing Tam Mutu sing this noble hero tenor boy part, and then he comes in and he's the Duke, and I'm like, oh, okay. And he's fantastic, really great. I want to see him as the Phantom now. Do not mention Love Never Dies, because that doesn't count. It does not exist as far as I'm concerned. It's interesting because he's now expressly a French noble post-revolution, which they actually make a mention of, rather than in the movie he seems to come off more as a British noble who is in France for some reason, especially because Monroth sounds particularly British, but Tam Mutu still has a British accent, so that's also his natural accent. I wonder if his understudy does the accent. Right, so the movie version is definitely more like an evil, obsessive child, like a la King Joffrey from Game of Thrones. I mentioned that joke earlier. The version from the show is a much more realistic abusive boyfriend type, which makes sense. It's who the character is at his heart, is an abusive, controlling narcissist. Also, he's legitimately attractive. Like, it may just be the fact that it's Tam Mutu playing him, but it makes Satine's, issue with having to choose a bit more believable, rather than just the money. But yes, that is the Duke. So next we have Nene Legs in the Air, played by Caroline O'Connor in the film version. Anastasia fans, you'll recognize that name, I trust. And played by Robin Herder in the stage version, but I actually saw Jodie McFadden playing the role. So, like I said earlier, Nini's no longer a backstabber. Yay! No more of this women putting down other women because they're jealous thing. They invented a boyfriend for Zidler who's really secretly working for the Duke. I know that sounds a little convoluted, but I like it better than the tired old women hating each other trope. She's also now expressly Satine's understudy in the show. They even make a point of saying, hey, Satine, you're sick. Why don't you let Nina go on instead? Which is a good thing. Yes, we love understudies. So then we have the other Ladies M? The other dancers. So these three characters are played by Jay Magis, Jacqueline B. Arnold, and Holly James. They are really a great sort of use of small characters to give texture to the world. Also, they sound so good on the harmonies on Lady Marmalade, and it's fantastic, and their dancing is also fantastic. Final thoughts. If you couldn't tell, I really liked it. I might be biased because I do love the movie so much, and the adaptation is very close to it. I'm not going to say identical, but it takes a lot of what I loved and puts it on stage, which is also something I love. So, first off, as an adaptation. So I'd say this adaptation, it makes necessary changes, but in general, it's very faithful. If you couldn't tell by my being able to summarize the movie and not having to re-summarize everything to tell you the plot of the musical. As a show in and of itself, I think it is stronger than the sum of its parts. The choreography and the tech aspects are what really put it over the top for me. I would say if you enjoy pop music, if you like the movie, go see this when Broadway comes back. So that is it. Again, my name is Mugsy and welcome to my channel.